All right, class, welcome to week one. In this first of series of lectures that I'm going to be doing with you guys, we're just going to cover the first three chapters of Morrow's Measurement and Evaluation in Human Performance. And you guys have access to each of these slideshows. They're in three separate um, files, but um, everything that you see here, you'll be able to look through on your own. I just want to take a little bit of time to cover some of the major topics or some of the concepts that I feel are a little bit more important, and you're probably going to see um, for as we go along in your research project. Um, so some of the objectives, as you'll see in the slideshow. So one of the first distinctions that I wanted to make is measurement and test. Measurement is used as a gauge, and then the test is used as the instrument to gauge. So just to kind of give you a little bit better understanding of how we're going to be using these terms. The next one is evaluation, statement of quality, goodness, merit, value, or worthiness about what has been assessed. So just a more encompassing term. It's a little bit more general. So this will make a little bit more sense as we get into the next few chapters. And then kinesmetrics just refers to um, what you call measurement and evaluation in kinesiology. So there's the two main types of evaluation that we're going to cover are norm reference and criterion reference. So norm reference compares your score to that of others. So here are a few examples. Your SAT scores, your GREs. Your score is compared to everyone else who has taken the exam, and that's how, you know, once they've decided what is an appropriate score, then, whether it be a university, a job, some sort of military institution, that's how they decide how to allow people into their program, their institution. Whereas a criterion reference compares your score relative to a criterion um, that you would like to achieve. So at some point, there was a minimum developed for each of these examples. So a driver's license examination, a BOC exam. So to become an athletic trainer, you have to pass a board exam. And then there's a minimum score. So everyone has to pass that or has to get a minimum score. Otherwise, they cannot get a license or a certification. Whereas norm reference just kind of gives you more of what tells you what percentage you're in compared to everyone else. Okay, and just skipping ahead a little bit, here are the purposes for measuring, testing, and evaluating in kinesiology. And just to kind of reinforce why we do what we do. Why are we taking the time to learn about statistics and what kind of testing we can do on human subjects? So one is placement, two is diagnosis, three is prediction, then motivation, achievement, and program evaluation. So those are the main purposes that you would be doing any kind of measuring or testing, and it'll kind of help put different types of research in their own little categories, so you'll understand a little bit better why a certain study was done. What were they actually trying to do? Were they trying to diagnose? Were they trying to predict something? Um, or if it's in a classroom setting, is it for motivation? Is it to show achievement? Any of these things. Okay, moving on to reliability and validity. So these two terms you're going to hear over and over as you go through grad school, and if you're going to go on to do more research, and if you're going to go on to get a doctorate, you're not going to be able to get away from these two terms, reliability and validity. So you might as well start getting used to them because you're going to have to work with these two terms a lot as you move on in your career. So reliability means consistency of measurement. So basically, it's saying, are you going to get the same score after the same score you get after one measurement as when you do 10 different measurements over time? Um, is the tool that you're using reliable because it will give you the same score um, from the beginning to the end of your study, whether that be with 10 subjects or 30 subjects. So the word kind of implies what the meaning is. The next one is validity. So that's truthfulness of measurement. So validity is basically telling you, um, is the instrument actually measuring what it's saying it's going to measure? Um, so let's say if you have a scale, and you get on the scale and the scale tells you um, the temperature of your room, it tells you that it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, a scale is supposed to tell you how much you weigh, not the temperature of the room. So that would not be a very valid measurement for weight. Just to kind of give you a little bit of an example here. It says a test cannot be valid if it is not reliable. So you need reliability for this to be for the instrument to be valid. Okay, so as we move on to domains of human performance, there are three major domains: affective, cognitive, and psychomotor. For our purposes, for students of human performance, we're mainly going to be concerned with psychomotor. And under psychomotor, we have reflexive movements, basic locomotor movements, perceptual motor abilities, physical abilities, skilled movements, and non-discursive movements. So um, as we go on through the class, the subjects that we're going to be reading about and that we're going to be testing are all mostly going to be under psychomotor. Okay, in the next chapter, the author goes over using technology in measurement and evaluation, which there are many uses for it, and our computers allow us to do a lot more with these measurements as well, as we'll see. This chapter also deals with a little bit, it delves into SPSS and introduces you to that, which you'll be using a little bit in this course. And if you do more research, you'll definitely be using SPSS for the most part. So what I did want to cover a little bit about in this chapter were the measurement uses of computers. So obtaining information, determining reliability and validity, a few things that computers allow us to do, evaluating test results, conducting program evaluation. So there's a lot that we can do with this, with computers and using statistics. In the past, fitness test results were reported orally on poorly prepared reports or on purple mimeograph copies. So we've come a long way since then, and it's a lot easier to present data and to analyze it and have people understand what our study has, what our study has, produced. So it's a lot easier to do that. One of the things that I wanted to go back to on this slideshow is a good list of resources for you guys to use. These are the suggested internet sites. So as you start looking for a topic for your CAP, here are a few good places that you can start. These websites will give you some good topics. You can read some good articles on here as well. Obviously, you want to use the library, and I believe there's a little instructional video on week 0 about how to use the library online. But aside from that, definitely use these resources on here to give you a little bit, to give you some more places to look into. All right, in chapter 3, we're going to cover descriptive statistics and normal distribution. So this chapter has a little bit more meat on it, and you may want to spend a little bit more time on it because there's a lot of terms that you're going to have to know. You have to make sure that you understand the difference between these terms. So to start off, descriptive statistics. So it's mathematical summaries of performance and performance performance characteristics, and characteristics of distribution. So this is what will allow us to understand our population, our sample. Um, so for example, we have scales of measurement. So here, the different types of measurements are divided by, or I'm sorry, split up between lowest to highest. So the scales of measurement represent a taxonomy from nominal to ratio. Nominal being the lowest and ratio being the highest. Nominal is categorical in nature, so no notion of order, magnitude, or size. So a nominal scale of measurement would be whether someone's male or female, what hair color are they, and all that will just be, it's either one or the other. There's no in between. So that might be part of the data that you'll be collecting with your sample. The next one would be ordinal, categorical in nature. So the numbers are ranked. However, the differences between each rank are not comparable. So the difference between first and second and third may not be the same size. Or the example that they give you here says, how do you feel today? Very unhappy, unhappy, okay, happy, or very happy. So the difference between each one, we can't be absolutely sure that the difference is the same between one score and the next. And then we have scale or continuous. If they can be added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided, it would be a scale measurement. So it says numbers are continuous in nature. They have a distinct place on a number line, and they can be interval, or ratio in form. And then here we have interval, which is equal or common unit of measurement. So for example, temperature or IQ. The 0 point on this scale, it says the value of 0 represents a point on the number line, but not the absence of the trait. So that means that technically a measurement or a score on this could go below 0, but it wouldn't mean that there is no temperature or there is no IQ. The next one is ratio, and here it's similar to interval except that there is a 0 point. So your weight, your height, there would be a 0 there that would mean something. All right, let's skip over to reporting data. So here we can do this through frequency distribution. So it helps us observe or actually get a better perspective of what our scores are actually doing or what they're saying. So a percentile, which represents the percent of observations at or below a given score. So this would be a norm reference comparison, which compares your score to others. So that's why you can put your score into a percentile. As opposed to a criterion reference comparison. The next thing would be central tendency. So here we have mean, median, and mode. So here's a few other terms that you're going to have to be really familiar with. And obviously they all start with the M, but once you read into them a little bit and see some more examples, you'll be able to tell the difference or be able to pick them out and know exactly what they mean. The mean would just be the average score. The median is the middle score, so the right at 50th percentile. And then mode would be the most frequently observed score. So each of these have a very unique characteristic. So for example, the mean is just the average, and which means that every score in that set would affect the whole average. The median is the middle score, and it works well for skewed data. So it helps keep everything, that very middle score, knowing that helps um, understand the data set a little bit better. And finally, the mode is, like I said, the most frequent score. This would be the most unstable measure of central tendency. Next, get to know the distribution shapes. And what I mean by that is these bell curves. They have different shapes depending on how the data is spread out. So we have, and I'm sorry, let me go back to this. So each of these uh, bell curves is separated from scores of -1, which would be on this side, to +1 on that side. So the other part of this is the peakness of a curve, which is referred to as kurtosis. So mesokurtic is a normal peak, um, platykurtic is a flat curve, and then leptokurtic is a steep curve. Um, the other thing to note is in which direction a bell curve is skewed. Negatively means it's skewed towards the right, as shown here. Normal is just right in the center. Positively skewed would be skewed to the left. Here's your three types of curves: mesokurtic, platykurtic, and leptokurtic. So the next thing I want to cover is variability. So for measures of variation, we have range, variance, and standard deviation. The range is just the high score minus the lowest score. And that can give us a good idea of the range of your score. So meaning, um, let's say you have a measure of strength for bicep curls on a football team. So having a figure as far as a range showing the strongest football player can curl 100 pounds, and then the least strongest football player can only curl 50 pounds. So the range would be 50. So that would give you an idea of how strong, from weakest to strongest, your football team is when it comes to, let's say, bicep curls. However, the problem with that is variability, or I'm sorry, it's a least stable measure of variability because it only takes into account the highest and the lowest. What if, out of the 50 guys on the football team, 35 or 40 of them are closer to the 50-pound dumbbell curl range? This range number would not really tell us that. It would just say that the range is 50, but it wouldn't tell us that, whoa, like, more than half of the guys aren't as strong as the strongest guy on the team. Variance is measure of the spread of a set of scores based on the average of the square deviation of each score from the mean. So this is definitely used more frequently than range because it explains um, the difference in scores a little bit better. Like it says right there, it's most stable measure of variability. And then once we get to standard deviation, it gives us a quick glimpse of every score and the variance of it. So, if a certain score is, let's say, the temperature is let's say, core temperature of a person is, um, let's say, 90 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus 3 degrees. That plus or minus is a standard deviation. So at any moment in time, a person's core body temperature could be 90 degrees, or it could be 87 degrees or 93 degrees, um, because of the standard deviation being plus or minus 3 degrees. We talked a little bit about normal distribution of scores, just to kind of show you the bell curve here. And in your textbook, you can read about this a little bit more to kind of help explain what these percentages mean. But it tells you a little bit more about where your scores, where each individual score would fall under this bell curve, and what that means, what percentile that person's score would fall under. And I think that's where I'll leave you guys at. I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of these main topics. The rest of this you guys can read in your textbook, and then go through the slideshow as well. If you have any questions about any of this, please send an email or post it on a discussion board, so that we can go a little bit deeper into it. But just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of the different topics that we're going to be going over. Obviously, you're going to chapter 2 goes over how to use your Excel spreadsheet in SPSS. So when it gets to that point, if you're having any trouble, let me know. We'll go over that a little bit more if we need to. But I believe this first assignment is pretty straightforward. So if you're still having trouble with it, just let me know. We'll go over that. But I'll leave you guys here, and I will talk to you guys next week. All right. Have a great week.